I've written a book called The Reformation 500 Years Later, 12 Things You Need to Know. And of course, there's going to be a lot of books about the Reformation coming out, given that we're celebrating the 500th year anniversary of that one way or another. Either we're celebrating or ruining it or we're confused about it. What I focus on in this book are largely the things that are ignored by many of the historians and that people wouldn't pick up on. And also help us to understand more exactly what caused the Reformation. Now, the first thing to ask ourselves is, why did the Reformation, capital R, happen? In other words, there had been countless reformations going back to the origin of the church. If you read the New Testament, it's clear there's already disagreement, there's dissension, there's problems with doctrine, there's problems with who has control over what church. There are heresies to be dealt with in the next centuries. The early church wasn't a pristine church. It wasn't where everyone was in full agreement. There were already reforms taking place. And if you look in the history of the church leading up to the Reformation, there were reformations again and again, small r. And so the question is, well, what was it about this one in the early 1500s where it wasn't just another Reformation with a small r? Why did it turn into the Reformation? And one of the things that I do in the book, and I do it in more than one way, is look at why did that happen? And what happened, what could have happened, what might have happened, so that the Reformation with a capital R was just one more reform within the Catholic Church, and we wouldn't have had the splintering of Christianity. And so in order to get both Catholics and Protestants to take a humble look at this, I have chapters devoted to taking it from all those angles. So we have a chapter for Catholics called, Yeah, There Really Were Bad Popes. There really were. And that leads to another interesting insight. What if the kinds of popes that we're used to in the 20th century, like somebody like John Paul II, had been a pope in the 1400s, leading up to the time of Luther? Would there have been a Reformation? Well, that's a humbling thought for Catholics, because there was corruption at the very top. And that corruption made the Reformation happen. It was understandable in light of that. We can look at the Protestant side. What if Martin Luther hadn't been so scared by a lightning storm that he made a rash vow, and it was a rash vow, he was kind of a rash person, to become an Augustinian monk? Because it was really his wrestling with that, which he hated, he didn't want to be one, which helped to bring about the Reformation. It was part of his discontent. What if Luther could have looked into the future and seen how Protestantism splintered after his beginning point? Would he have begun the Reformation and carried it on in the way that he did? So there are a lot of what ifs that help us to explain both why the small Reformation with a small r, turned into the big Reformation, the one that we're now looking at is 500 years since its origin. And that helps us understand perhaps how we might go about bringing about a unified Christianity again.